Sir.
We'll call the work session to order, please.
All right. Madam Mayor, Council, we sent out a proposed draft of the budget document to you guys this past Friday. At this point, we have really done an in-depth review of the revenues as they're going this year, as well as the expenditures. We have met with department heads regarding this coming year and what we're projecting, and we have built a budget. A lot of this budget is really just standard reoccurring expenditures that are going to be there from year to year. There are a few items in there that we have the ability to work with, but at this point, this budget is in a form that we are comfortable with presenting you with that at this point. Obviously, over the next month until June 12th, we'll continue to analyze the revenues and expenditures just to make sure nothing's happening. As of the other day, I had received a number of different requests from different council members on potential budget items. I will say that in talking with them, I feel like tonight would be a good session to come in, and the goals for tonight be, number one, to answer any questions there may be at this time. But number two, to pitch an idea for a cost of living adjustment that we have. And number three, if any council members, such as they've done this past week, have any additional requests for potential budget items, to put that before council, and let's see if there is a consensus from council that this is something that the majority would like to see us include in the budget or find a way to include in the budget. So this year, last year we were met with a number of challenges, more specifically related to health care and the increase with that. This year we've dealt with a number of issues related to the pension increase that the state has just put down of a 2% pension increase this year, as well as 1% for the next 5 years. So just trying to understand not only this year, but future years, what this pension means to us and what effect it's going to have on us. Additionally, in looking at the real property tax line item, we had a reassessment this past year. Right now, we are trending a little bit lower in the real property tax line item, and really would like to see what comes in this month regarding that, to see if we're on course or trending under budget on that. As always, the local government fund is always a challenge, not being funded, and that's something we can every year have to work through. We did have a slight increase to healthcare costs on the employer side this year that we're going to have to budget for. And in just a minute, I'm going to turn it over and let Seth explain our idea of a cost of living adjustment. At this point, the general fund budget is balanced. With regards to the utility fund is balanced. The general fund balance is showing a 30,000, 31,000, I don't remember the number right off the top of my head. We have an idea for a cost of living adjustment that we want to do for the employees. It's a matter of, in y'all's evaluation of the budget, pitching our idea and then seeing if there's a way that we can make this happen. But that'll be for discussion once Seth finishes.
Well, as Mr. Luckadoo suggested, the pension reform bill had a profound impact on not just current year fiscal analysis, but also the next 5 years. The biggest three issues that we saw coming down, especially for the employee side in relation to not just the pension plan, but also what's going on, is that beginning July 1st, all employees in town will receive a smaller paycheck because of the reform bill. And that's because the employee contribution will increase from 8.5% to 9%. So every employee will have a smaller paycheck come July 1. And thinking about that, and thinking about our employer contribution kind of situation going forward, and trying to think of a new idea to address things like an increasing inflation rate, consumer price index going up, and some other challenges, including the fact that every time we increase pay, going forward, we're only going to have just the pay salary item that we have to account for, but we'll also have to account for in our long-term planning a 7% increase on the employer contribution to their team. Someone, yes, sir.
I'm sorry, sir. You said that decrease in pay would be what percentage?
Well, it's not a percentage decrease, but the pension for the employee portion is going up from 8.5% to 9%. So the percentage would be based upon whatever that employee makes, but the overall impact is that town employees will receive a smaller paycheck July 1 than they would have received June 30th. And so knowing that in this next budget, they would have less money in their pockets, we looked to see, well, what other types of incentives and programs, ideas that we could come up with that don't add to our long-term fiscal impact on the employer side of the equation, but still have a benefit, a tangible benefit to the employee. And so one of the ideas that we proposed, put in this budget, and are putting before council tonight for consideration, is this one-time merit-based cost of living adjustment. And simply what it does is looking at the price inflations that we have, not just on the employee pension side, but also on the fact that energy prices have risen around 10% nationally this year, that we've got a CPI growth index for March of 2.4%, and the South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office has calculated the CPI for municipal millage cap, so the cap that goes against what we can increase on an Act 388 tax increase is going to be 1.28%. So looking at all those factors, we wanted to come up with an idea or potentially a plan that could help mitigate some of those inflationary costs to the employee. And the reason why we did this is, first we wanted to create a one-time payout versus a multi-year payout, which would have increased liabilities for the town. We also wanted to make sure that, we wanted to make sure that it was something that was merit-based, so it wasn't an across-the-board increase or an incentive to everyone, that it was something that those who are measured annually, those who receive the, well, they all do, but the annual review, that we use that as a tool to determine if or how much an employee would receive as far as a merit-based increase. And so that's kind of really a little bit more about what it is. On page 2 of the packet that was sent out, it talks about how we would incorporate that with some existing funding mechanisms that we already use, which include the longevity bonus that we issue annually, the Christmas bonus, which is issued annually, and then of course this one-time adjustment as well. And so these two current items, plus this third item, would be combined into a single issue pay adjustment issued right around the November-December timeframe. And of course, this helps mitigate the impact of the pension reform bill, the overall increases the cost of living to staff, and this would be in lieu of pay raises for the coming fiscal year. So there would be no money for pay raises if this idea were to move forward. Yes, sir.
Are all pay increases merit-based?
Typically, it would depend on, like last year we created the merit pool, and so it was merit-based, but I know that in years previous, there have been some cost of living adjustments that were across the board that were not necessarily merit-based. There's been some that have been based simply on what we would call a competitive basis, which means that we're trying to get pay increases up to a certain level for a particular position, because historically it was either lower compared to our siblings or our peers, and so there have been those types of adjustments in the past.
So if a person is not selected for a merit-based increase, that person would make less money this year than they made last year?
No, sir. Under the way we've envisioned it and are doing it is that an employee would receive, at a minimum, still the same level of compensation from the Christmas bonus that had been issued previously and the longevity bonus. The percentage that we're looking at as far as the merit increase would range between 1% and 3%, contingent upon their annual evaluation. And so this would be a metric-based system that, depending on how well they score, they would fall into a particular category, and then they would receive that additional bit on top of the kind of the standard system that we had been doing for years past.
Does council have that, score scale?
Well, we haven't developed it yet. We will be doing that in July. We have been traditionally doing evaluations based upon the month of entry of service. So, for example, if my anniversary falls in February, that's when my evaluation would be. We're going to move to an evaluation time period of the entire month of October, and so we would sequence everyone to a single month, knock them all out right before this incentive program were to kick in December. And so then that way we're doing evaluations at one point in time versus doing evaluations over a 12-month rotation. And for some departments, it's a very welcome change, because they may have 3 or 4 that they have to do every month, and so they're constantly having to do evaluations. And so this would be a much more simplified, streamlined, and improved process for them.
And the merit base is based upon those annual evaluations, or how often you do those?
Correct. They would all be done in October, with the results sent to the management team by mid-November, and then we would move forward at that point.
One other question.
Sure.
Might some employee, based upon the evaluation, not qualify for the merit increase?
I would say this, the range could be from 1% to 3% based on the proposal that we have. I don't see a point where someone would not get anything. It would be from 1% to 3% based on the performance of their job duties and what their evaluation says.
So everybody would get at least 1%.
Yes, I would envision that.
Well, basically, it is performance-based. You know, it's not just because you show up for work.
Right, yes, ma'am. I think also, you know, if we hired someone the first week of December or the last week of November, I think that, you know, it would be too short of a time period, but that would be the only other thing I can envision. But as far as not necessarily getting that 1%, because they would have just gotten on board. So,
is this merit not including cost of living?
no, the merit piece is the cost of living piece. So there
if
would
you're
be,
not a good employee, you don't get a cost of living increase, even though the cost of living increases.
well, it's a merit-based cost of living adjustment.
Right, but if you're not a good employee, you don't get it.
I would hope they're all good employees.
Yeah, well, if you're not. And then who is evaluating? Is this peer evaluation, or is this if you piss Teddy off this in October, you might not get a raise?
No, this would be department heads evaluating their employees.
Is any peer evaluation a part of that? Because I mean, you can piss your boss off.
We are looking to revamp the entire review process, or we're looking at redoing the entire process beginning in July, and we're looking at all different types of models, modes, and formats to do that. And so what other department heads have said is they would like to see a component of peer review and even self-reflection or self-review as well. So we're going to take into consideration different modes and
Yeah, but what you're asking us to do now is to vote on something y'all haven't even developed yet.
we're asking, well, as far as that new component, we have an existing one. We're not fancy.
I would say this, the employee evaluation function falls within the administration. And so we're going to create an evaluation system for us to best evaluate the employees to be able to make these decisions. We've had an evaluation process, but if we were to move to this merit-based cost of living pay, we do want to revamp our evaluation process from what it is now to have a better skill to be able to determine. Right now, I would say our evaluation process is, I don't want to say vague, it's not vague, but it's not as extensive as we would like it if we're going to be basing, you know, a merit cost of living off of that. And so with regards to approving something that's an evaluation that's not in place, you know, that's a function of what we do as administrators and council members, and we will come up with a process to best do that. What we need to know is, does council have an appetite and do they want to move forward with funds this year to allow us to do that?
All right, can I ask you a question? All right, so I'm not a real smart guy, and I'm reading the the enterprise fund's got it built in there already, right?
In the
If we
enterprise
decide
fund,
to-
it is already built in.
So what you're asking us for is a way to fund the $31,000 to make that happen, which I
Correct.
think we need to make it happen, because I think it's, you know, it's the going thing for employees. So what you guys are basically saying is, you want us to move forward with this, and how are we gonna fund it?
Right,
Yes.
correct.
Okay? Right, we just want to, where's my ear? Do we want to just let them go ahead and figure out how we pay for it, or what do we?
The different line items for each department for salaries and wages, the amount that you requested. For example, for the police department, there's almost a $200,000 difference from last year. Did y'all just go ahead and take 3% of everybody's salary to assume everybody would get a 3% increase?
What we're asking for is to assume that everybody would get 3%.
Okay.
It's because if we wouldn't want to come under budget.
Absolutely.
We're budgeting as if everybody receives 3%.
Okay.
And to be honest, we hope everybody does.
Sure.
So,
I just want to make sure I understand where the number came from.
As far as the salary wages line items go, those are actually reflective of the merit pool increases and raises from this year. So they would, of course, in the next budget go up.
They're actual.
They're actual. So the line item that's going to contain this merit cost of living adjustment would be under non-departmental and has its own separate line item, just like the merit pool did this past year.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's not reflective in salary and wages. That's simply a reflection of the merit pool being used this year to provide increases for staff in those departments.
so basically at this point, with regards to this specifically, we wanted to reach out to council and get your thoughts on that.
You can have my $5,000 if it helps. I don't know where, do you want to wait until you see the actuals come in from your taxes over till June 12th, or is there something, I think we need to move forward. Is there consensus as a council, we want to move forward, right?
We would need a consensus to know which direction we need to head with this.
And so actually you just want to know who's in favor of or who's opposed?
Well, number one, are you in favor of a merit-based cost of living paid for, one-time payout for staff this year? The second thing is, obviously, we have to come up with 30,000, and that's something that we would have to discuss and look at, is how do we want to come up with
So
that?
once we tell you we want you to go forward, then you got 6 weeks to come up with a way of funding different ways. Is that right?
Right.
Okay. So, Ms. Mayor, I think we should let them, I'm not opposed to it.
So do we do?
We're not voting, but we can certainly take
The
consensus
consensus.
here as to council's appetite as to whether we can move forward with the merit-based, and I've got no issues with it at all. Sounds like a good plan.
District one's in favor.
We're not voting.
I'm in favor.
No, I think you're good. So,
As Councilman Kane indicated, you're asking us to approve something or give accommodations to something that's not even in place yet.
What do you mean it's not?
The guidelines would have been put in place.
It's an evaluation of the employee, something we do on an annual basis. We're just simply saying that,
But currently, it's a opinionated evaluation.
well, I mean, I wouldn't say evaluations are, it's not opinionated, it's based on the way that we view their job performance.
Every employee should be doing their job. If they're not, they shouldn't be an employee. Now, if a person goes above and beyond their duties, that's another thing altogether. But if a person is not performing their job, why are they employed by the town?
You have people that do perform better than others, and you have some that you need some encouragement sometimes. All they need is a little bit of encouragement. There's a whole lot of factors into evaluating
Usually that
employees.
comes in the form of a promotion or something to that effect.
If and when promotional opportunities come back.
But in terms of cost of living, everybody should get a cost of living raise. As Seth indicated, they are making less money this year than they made last year if they don't get at least a cost of living raise.
And that's where we're saying the 1% would take care of any of their losses plus some on that.
Just take that 0.5% for,
It would cover that. Even a 1% would cover that.
So, when you go into your evaluation, you know you got 1%.
Yeah, because I can tell you, if we were to have an employee that doesn't perform at a level that we could give them 1%, I kind of agree with Councilman Simpkins. I mean, we have to evaluate that employee's position with the town.
Right.
If they're not performing to a level of even receiving 1%.
but now you did merit last year, this past fiscal year.
Right.
Right.
So,
It's in place.
a lot of places have gone to that as the carrot for performance improve, or to raise the expectations and level of performance for staff, so.
And the other thing is, you've
It's
got to
already
build in
in
the
place,
enterprise
already
fund, we
looking.
cannot give them to the enterprise fund if we can't give them to the general fund people.
I would
So,
agree with that.
If that evaluation
It's
process
not
is
fair.
already in place, all you're saying is you are going to revise the evaluation process, you're not changing personnel policy at all, you're using what you've got in place, but you need the 31,000 to fund the additional up to 3% carry. So, I'm all for it.
Yeah. Keep work on it until June 12th.
Well, as I have indicated from the beginning, over the past few years, that the merit base leaves too much room for error in terms of opinionation by those who are making the final decision, and discrimination against certain employees could easily come into play in a merit-based
You can rest assured that discrimination would not be in our evaluation process. We would do it based on the performance of that person's job.
And that's why I suggested that we have peer review also, because it makes it a little bit more even-handed. But
And we've had discussions about incorporating peer review. We have, so
that would be.
we've agreed with the notion of having a peer review as well. And even a self-review. I mean, if you do a self-review, you have a peer review, and then you have a review by the department head, you really can bring those three together. You
I
look
think
at
that would be good, because that way you would find if there's any outliers.
Right.
A lot of times that's called a 360 review, where you bring in more than just the direct supervisor, so. That's used, I think, a lot of times for superintendents, a 360 process where you have external, but anyway.
Oh, I'm sure
digress.
it's more than one person in that situation.
As far as finding funding, do you know offhand what council's actual total pay is as a collective group?
Council's total compensation, give me one second. I believe it's around, including retirement,
31.
social security, everything, you're looking at
31,666.
you're looking at around 44 to 45,000 from a compensation standpoint for council.
If council were to revert back to its compensation as it was when we were getting a certain amount for training and then just a nominal stipend for attending the meetings, wasn't it about $1,000 a council person with training and
Yeah, it was around 1,000 per council member compensation, then I think we had around 4,000 allotted per year for training. That would be around 14,000 is where that would have been previously, at 1,000 per council member at 9, and then there was around 4,000 allotted for training. So that would be 14,000.
if council were willing to go back to the old compensation versus their increased pay, would that not fill the gap for the employees?
I mean, certainly that releases funds to make them available.
I mean, that money could go into that funding, is that correct?
It could.
But that would not be enough funds to even finance council's training annually for seminars and workshops and whatnot. And that's the reason that we
You have like
increased
$14,000 left
them.
over.
That's the reason we increased it. And it's still not adequate. If council attend the training that's available to them annually, they would not even be able to go to all of it with the current stipend that we get. We cannot attend the National League of City conferences. They have 2 major conferences per year.
Well, I would say
We
this.
can't attend because we don't have enough funds.
With regards to council pay, this is something staff would have no recommendation, has no opinion related to. This would be between y'all as council
Have you
members.
calculated CPI? Jim says it's 2.4.
2.4 down.
2.4.
And I think last time we did it, it was like 25,000. Do we have any idea?
Oh, you talking about if we did
Yeah,
a
a CPI increase.
CPI increase
Yeah.
this year? The value of 1 mil, give me 1 second. If there's any other discussion, if you give me a minute, I can do my best to come up with the number. You're probably gonna be below, you're gonna be,
Tax revenue is 1 million, what? That's what it's based on. 'Cause it's
right now, my projection, if we did the CPI, well, wait. You talking about for a millage increase? They've already given the number, CPI number.
Yeah, the CPI for the millage increase would be only
1.28.
1.28, and we're still waiting on the population number to come in. It won't be until later this month from
Right.
Revenue and Fiscal Affairs.
We don't know what population will add to it, but as of right now, it's a 1.28.
Well, how can 1% cover the cost of living?
Well, we're talking about as far as a millage increase, and that this is the CPI plus population that we're allowed to use under Act 388 to calculate a millage increase is not reflective of what the cost of living
Consumer price
has
index.
done.
And that
I
was,
understand what you put consumer price index is, but you say 1% would cover the cost of living increase for all employees across the board. Earlier, you did, right?
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
You said that at least 1%, everybody would get, and that would cover the cost of living.
Well, I'm not saying that would cover the 2.4% consumer, or,
Price index, yeah, that's different.
no.
What you're saying, it would cover what they're losing.
It would cover what they're losing
Right.
plus some, but I'm not saying it would necessarily cover the 2.4%
You know, what you don't do is-
cost of living nationwide.
You don't do it.
Now,
Consumer price
again-
index rate.
no.
No.
Well, what's the cost of living increase last year?
The year over year, describe that a little bit more. So, cost of living increase over what?
Of what?
Of
What
what?
number are you looking
Of
at?
what it was
Of consumer indexes? If it's a consumer index, that's the CPI, and that's 2.4 as of March, year on year. Now, that's not the same rate that's used across governments and businesses to describe everything. So, for example, the South Carolina Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office uses a CPI that they've calculated for a municipal millage cap in relation to Act 388 as being 1.28. How they come up with it, I don't know.
I cannot explain how the state comes up with the CPI and population.
That's a joke. That actually,
More PhDs than I have.
anyway.
So Ted, in this budget, you are planning on having a tax increase?
No, I have not presented a budget that shows what I have we have a balanced enterprise budget. Within that is built in the funds
But
necessary.
you have to have a balanced enterprise budget. You can't use the money for much other than,
You gotta have balanced both budgets.
well, both budgets
Right.
are balanced, but
Right
you don't
now,
have any flexibility, so to speak, in the enterprise.
right now, if council said we didn't want to move forward with this proposal that we put in place today, if you just remove that, you would have a balanced general fund budget. We're saying it is our intent and our hope that we can come up with the funds necessary to give the employees this additional funds for this year.
I got you.
With that, if the
But
intent
this
of
is a
council.
one-off? This is a one-off?
Right,
Yeah.
Okay.
right,
Yeah.
right, not reoccurring.
Right.
But why,
Well, the
not
reason.
understanding why the one-off this year?
The one-off is right now, we have the liability of the pension increase, 2% this year and then 1% for the next 5 years. By doing a one-off payoff, you avoid having to pay retirement on that, therefore you don't have the liability of the pension increase
You're
affecting.
giving it to them up front, so you don't have to pay on the back end, is that what you're saying?
Well, you're just not having to pay retirement on a one-time per year approved payout. You don't have to pay retirement on that, therefore the increase in pension on a year-to-year basis, we're not assuming more liability by doing it in a standard salary increase.
Yeah, one-time payout's better than the across the board.
Because my liability goes up 7% over the next 5 years. So if I'm paying someone $30,000 a year and I increase their pay to $35,000, I also now have a 35% or a $35,000 pension liability at 7% over the next 5 years.
So you
Whereas
can
you do a one-time payout, I can do $32,000 for that employee this year, and then next year I only have to budget $30,000 for their salary.
All right, I got you.
Yeah.
Now, I will say this, we have talked with some employees, and I will say a majority of the employees have felt good about this. There was some concern expressed by some with regards to retirement, how this would affect retirement. They hope this is not a long-term, what we intend to do every single year.
Is it? Is it long term? Because I
No,
can see why
I
somebody,
don't.
I mean, I can see how somebody would
That's
be.
what revenue is.
It is a long-term liability, but we just have so much, there's so much going on at the State House right now between the local government fund, the pension reform, and I'll be honest, they're still trying to 100% decide what they want to do with pension this year. The local government fund, the House version has us being funded less in the local government fund than we were last year. The Senate version has us going up $16,000. There's just a lot up in the air with regards to what's going on at the State House right now with a number of different things. And without knowing those things for certain and what they're going to do, to give it a little time to shake out so that we can know what we need to do moving forward, we think this year a one-time payout is best suited with all the up and down that's going on at the State House. We just feel this is the best thing for this year. I hope that one-time payouts is not a long-term thing. I don't intend for it to be. This is just a good option this year to give the Senate and the House time to figure out what they want to do with some of these key topics.
And say that again, Ted. You hope that it's not going to be a reoccurring thing.
I hope that this is not a reoccurring every year.
Really not.
We have to do a one-time payout. We certainly want to make this a part of their salaries so that it helps them with their retirement in the long run, so.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Got direction? We go home now?
My direction is to just figure
Move forward, figure it out.
Where you gonna find $31,000?
it out.
Present us some stuff.
Councilmember Taylor was making a suggestion earlier, I don't know if that,
Look at yeah, Rachel was discussing the reduction in salaries,
Yeah, look at all
council
this.
compensation, so look at that, look at what CPI would do, bring us the figures back.
If
Okay.
you reduce the
Yeah,
salaries
decisions.
and take your 31, you still have, what, 14 left? Is that what you just told us? So
Correct.
we can put that in the pool, and if Charles wants to go to Hawaii, we'll send him to Hawaii.
But you know what's funny though is that the website that we have right now was something that came out of the municipal association, us going down to the municipal association and seeing what they were doing and different things and bringing it back to Joanne. So, some people will go down there and not take the classes and whatnot and just have a good time. But there's a lot of good information that comes from being trained. I mean,
I will speak, I'm an advocate of training for our department heads and our staff. I'm a huge advocate of training and I believe in it, and I'll be honest.
A lot of folks, it's not for all council people. People have been on council for 4 years and never had any training. But you don't know I always remember when Dolores Feaster, when she left council, she went down to the municipal association for the first time in her last term, and she said, I wish I had gone more because I learned more during that week than I had learned in the whole 3 years. So, well, I'm just saying, it's good to have, and, I'm paying my way down this year, but because I value the training and also meeting the different council people and seeing how things go. And Ted, if it wasn't for Casey, we wouldn't have you, or have the ideas that you have. So it's good to bounce things off of other council people. And it is. I don't mind paying for it, but some people wanna go, some people don't wanna go. If Charles wants to go,
That's right.
I mean, I don't think it'd be a big problem for them to go to, the one in DC is even better than the one that South Carolina does. And I was, lucky enough to go to Legal City, and there's so much stuff. Let me tell you one more thing about the Legal Cities. When we went to the Legal Cities, we were sitting in the room, the round table, with the grant writing decision maker, the person who was actually going to make a decision on whether you get funded or not. And they did a round robin. It was like, you got 15 minutes with a decision maker from an agency. They talked about after school and summer and food. I mean, I didn't even know what to ask for. But the person that was making the decision was in that. We got cards from them and whatnot. So sometimes it's a good thing for the town. You can bring money back to the town.
Well, when we went up to the National League of Cities in DC, we went to all of the senators and representatives' offices from the state of South Carolina, sit down and talk with them and share with them our concerns, and they share with us how they felt about certain things on the national level. So it's very beneficial to establish those types of relationships. And then once you do that, you can call them and they know who you are, and they're willing to listen to you and whatnot.
You could bring some money back to the town if everybody's on one accord about what we want to do.
Right.
And you sitting in front of a decision maker. But Joanne, I mean, she's not here, but Joanne, I used to, Judy, I would call from Hilton Head or someplace and talk directly to Joanne about something that I had just heard on YouTube. So it's not just, vacation. When I go anyway, I try to bring something back.
In the meantime, you've got to come up with scenarios.
Yeah, Ted, one other thing that I would like you to take a look at is the senior benefit fund for the water and sewer account.
The senior assistance fund?
Assistance fund. We have seniors in our community that are struggling to pay their water and sewer bills. And we have a program now that will assist them with $50 per month for up to 4 months, and if they qualify. And this is the income is at below a certain level, and they're at a certain age. I believe it's 62 at this time. I would like to bring that back before council to take a look at increasing the amount of money that we can put in that fund if you can find it, so that we can get more people into that program. Because I spoke to the ladies at the front desk, and they indicated that there are people coming in that they know have a need, but they can't serve them because of they don't qualify.
And Councilman Simpkins, if there's a consensus among council, I would be happy to take a look at that.
How much is that line item now?
$14,400, I believe.
From the general fund.
From the general fund.
Are we using all of it?
I will say,
No, ma'am.
No.
no ma'am, we have not been using it all.
We need to establish the criteria, is who needs to go back and reevaluate the criteria and bring a recommendation back to council.
Okay, so I'm not necessarily,
If we're not spending all the money,
right.
we don't necessarily need to add more money. We
Charles,
need to
you just
re-
want to change it to 62?
It is 62.
Oh, sorry.
We need to reevaluate that criteria. So, do you remember who that committee
So-
was?
Oh, my God.
Not necessarily additional funds, because we haven't been spending the full funds each year, it's the criteria.
Meet with me. We can sit down and take a look at it and bring back our finance account.
We just need to reestablish that committee to reevaluate that criteria.
I wasn't here when the committee was.
Yeah, Mr. Charles and Rachel, would you be willing to do that? To sit up, to help with this evaluation, look at the criteria?
That's quite full right
All
now.
right, meet now.
Bob said he believes he
Bob?
is 6 days younger than Charles. So you're all old.
How about you, Jim?
No, I ain't got that.
Then how about with Steph?
I'll tell you what,
The two council members and the assistant manager get together and look at this criteria?
okay, we can do that, we can do that.
That,
Who are the council members?
these two,
Okay.
Bob and Charles. Jay's back there smiling, he might put him on too.
I was smiling at Bob's reaction to your appointment.
But best recommendation,
Fall would be good.
and let's see who, the girls we're seeing come in the door that, don't qualify.
It's a lot of the reoccurring same people. We don't see a lot of generally a lot of new faces come in. I think we had the same list on a year-to-year basis.
But usually they.
And you know what, it might be an education thing. It might be something as simple as putting it out there that we have this. I would almost recommend we give that a shot, advertise that we have this program, give the requirements, and see if that simply brings it up. It may be something as simple as marketing the
Well,
program.
Let's look at the whole process
So,
and see what.
but yeah, we can look at the process.
Also, if the same people are coming over and over again, they might have issue, they might have a leaky toilet, or, I mean, you know what I'm saying, they might have something, I mean, they really might have something that's a
The
problem.
great thing about that is they have to come in and sit down with one of our representatives one-on-one, and that is, I can assure you that when they come in, if anything is wacky with their bill, we do an evaluation of it. So, that is a good opportunity to be face-to-face and for us to evaluate their account, so.
All right, other than our taking this home and reading through all the nuts and bolts and not going through all these pages tonight, is there anything else that we need to really?
But I don't know if we've got a consensus on that first item.
Which one?
Did you get enough clarity? On Councilmember Taylor put out the council pay
Well,
adjustment.
Councilman
and the
Wizawati brought
training.
up, and Mayor Kraft brought up, we need to evaluate multiple options. Anything from a millage increase to council pay to other options that may exist, to try and cover that $31,000.
Give us the options and then we go.
And so,
Don't mess with council pay unless you're gonna increase.
well, right now,
We
we,
need to go to more, training sessions.
right now, we will come with options.
Go with options.
Am I wrong that it sounds like just off the top that for us to do the merit pay, continue to pay council, we're gonna have to raise the millage?
You can't raise the millage.
So,
That won't cover it.
No, I think
It won't be enough to cover it.
so that would be.
I can assure you a millage increase alone would not cover the $31,000. I could assure you on that. I would think the maximum a millage increase based on CPI, unless population is through the roof, would probably be on a maximum level 15, but probably more likely 10 to 12.
Okay. So right now, there's no training funds in this draft budget. So Councilmember Simpkins brought up the idea of having training funds. Is that something that
Which is like,
consensus
what
was
is it?
to?
It's $45,000, so if you need 31, you got 14 left over, put it in training funds, and then they go to training.
I think
I mean,
before
just
it
put
was,
all that together, come back to us.
But council,
go back. to-
were you saying training funds in addition to council pay? We need to include training funds, or were you saying if council pay went down, we need to ensure that we have training funds in there?
No, I think what, Wiz is saying is that the councilmen who don't want to take their training fund, use their training funds, put it in a pool
Yeah.
for the councilmen who use it.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Based on current pay?
Yes, based on.
Well, right now, there are no training funds.
This pay,
But the
going back
councilmen
to,
who don't want to use their training,
There are no
stipend,
training funds.
what do you call it?
There-
Whatever
Pay.
council, you call it pay. Well, whatever council get, those who refuse it, put it into a fund for those councilmen who want to go to additional training, that, well, evidently it is.
No. Well, the model changed from the way it used to be. Council pay increased, but
But that, what were you talking about?
my suggestion was to go back to what we used to get, which was the simple stipend, which, when I signed up to be on council, I looked at it as like,
Why would that come up? To me, that's the only thing.
That's the only
only place to
sacrifice.
steal.
that it would be to go back there, and I'm all for whoever's suggestion it was, those who do not use their training, who choose not to train, to put that in a pool.
Sure.
But as far as council people getting an increased salary. I think it's our civic duty to do this. I don't think it needs to be an incentive to be paid to be on council.
Well, duty or not, there's still a cost associated with serving on council, especially if you go take advantage of the training that's available.
Most councils around the state use four councils.
All of them outside, how you?
And what they pay in Saluda is even more than I get paid. But whatever, whatever it
Right now,
takes.
it's the one sacrificial lamb.
That was my thoughts. If it means the employees getting compensated, I would rather the employees get.
I'm with
Yeah.
you.
Absolutely.
I'm with y'all. You work way harder than I do.
Well, it shouldn't be a paid position anyway, we chose to do this, and
That's
people
right.
liked it.
I'm with you.
I didn't come to council to get paid, I have a salary
I
job.
didn't come to get.
Well, we're
it's
not
double my
asking
salary.
for pay, we're asking to cover our training expenses.
Okay, so you.
That's all
so-
we're asking
All right,
for.
so this is the deal. There's $45,000 in travel and training in our little thing for us. So if you need 31 of it, at least $14,000 left over. Put it in the pool. When somebody wants to go, they come and ask, and we give them the money.
I have no problem
No,
with
so
that.
no compensation, just training funds.
No.
Well, that's what.
It's the Philadelphia lawyer in you.
Is that what you?
That's what I'm saying.
That's exactly
That's what I'm saying.
Put all the money in the pool?
The 14,000 that's left over,
No
after we give them
salary.
the 31.
And then you get to go train.
See,
No salary whatsoever. It's like they run.
Then they're gonna wanna deduct the pool.
Well, I don't know. They really don't.
Come up with a scenario.
okay, can we go on now?
I can write scenarios.
But we don't have to.
If I could add at this point, I really appreciate what you did with the white paper this time, with the highlights of the budget, that we're not having to go through everything with a fine tooth comb, that the things that you pointed out, that assists me a lot, and I appreciate what.
And I want to say this in response to that, a lot of hours go into preparing these budgets, and I'll be honest, it cannot be done without Seth and those department heads sitting back there. This is a very challenging thing to do each year, very stressful thing to do each year, and it can't be done without everyone you see sitting over there. So I appreciate all their input and assistance.
Right. Well, I just want to concur also that you all have done an excellent job simplifying things on the proposed budget. That was very enlightening in order to look at it and have a clear understanding of what you're trying to convey to us. I do have one question, and that question was, you have the requested amount on the left-hand side, the appropriation for 16-17, for what you spent last year, right?
That's what was budgeted last year.
Last year, right?
Right.
And then you have the actual. Now, my question is the actual based upon 12 months or where we are now?
It's through the
10 months.
It's through the 10th month,
10th.
and I will tell you that a lot of these line items don't necessarily have all 10 months. You've got some things, the 13th month concept.
Right.
Some things that aren't paid until August don't reflect the line item till August. So some of them could appear to be wacky, this and that.
Until the audit.
It's either 10 months
It's just
or 9 months included in those
really
line
an
items.
estimate. The last
That's
column, the
expenses
dollar.
as through right now.
Right, through right now. Okay, that was my question.
Okay. Is there anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, we're gone.